Hi, Katie. Welcome to Email Week.
Hi, Natalie. Welcome to email month. Like a whole month. We have 4 weeks dedicated to just dealing with email. And I personally feel like it's very needed. What about you?
I know, and I think this week's episode is going to really hit.
I agree with you. I personally have been the victim of multiple grammar and spelling police who have just slid into my inbox and been like, you misspelled this word, and it's completely irrelevant. I like used the wrong there or something. Do you get this?
So I think that it's a twofold issue. It's not only like what do you say to these people, but also how do you deal with it? Because I don't know about you, I just want to punch my computer when these things come in. It's like you understood me. What does it matter? So I think we need to start by talking about what happened to us last week. Hi, and welcome to the Dyslexia and Adults podcast. I'm Natalie, and I know exactly what it feels like to be frustrated, embarrassed, and exhausted by dyslexia, which is why this podcast is about sharing the advice and strategies that I wish I had known sooner. There is no cliches, no fluff, and it's just real strategies that we know work. So let's get started. So we send our email out to over, what is it, like 8,500 people or something like that by now.
I
And
think we're right
we're,
at 10,000.
yeah, something crazy like that. But it's two dyslexic people writing to an audience of dyslexic people. We don't heavily spell check it. Like we check it, but if things slip through, they slip through. Something slipped through the other day, which is I think you spell
Oh,
embrace.
yes, I know this story. Okay, so usually when I'm writing like the one of the parts of the newsletter, I run it through Grammarly, like I write it in Grammarly. That way it catches most of the stuff, mainly just because I want people, the actual important part of an email and the spelling is I want people to know what I'm saying. I don't really care about the spelling piece. But there's a like we have a little a different block and you just like put one or two words of text and I never run those through Grammarly. I just type them on the fly and like just hope that my computer catches the spelling mistake. But this one, I think I said like embrace yourself or embrace your differences, or it was something like tiny like that. It was just, I spelt embrace and I used a C. No, I used an S, not a C for the last letter. And
And then someone emailed us going, embrace, 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 not embracey. Like, firstly, really?
well,
Secondly, doesn't even make sense your email. So I don't know what you're getting on us for.
that was the best part is so okay, I get the emails when people like respond to the weekly newsletter. They go into like the general inbox and I'm the one in charge of making sure they get answered. It just said like embrace, 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 not embrace. And so I very politely emailed back thinking like this person was asking about something. And I was like, hey, thank you so much for reaching out. I'm so sorry. I don't understand what, and then I like quoted him, means. Would you mind clarifying what you're asking? We'd be happy to assist. And then they like, I'm not even kidding. They just responded back, Natalie, with you misspelled embrace. Scroll down. You spelled it correctly below. And I was like, okay, attitude.
Mm.
Like know your audience. We're a dyslexic company for dyslexic people writing about dyslexia. Why would we spell everything correctly?
So, other than wanting to tell this person to absolutely shove it, but I personally wouldn't use the term shove it, I would use more expletives. But let's say we're going to say shove it. What else do you think we should recommend to people? Because honestly, my full visceral reaction is shove it.
So, yeah, my initial reaction was, and to our editor, please bleep this off.
Mm,
Um,
that's a bit more like it.
but you can't tell like we're running a business, we have to be polite. Like, and also like you can't tell your manager to shove it when they like correct your spelling or Jan in accounting or whoever. Like
I was
this
gonna
is
say we can't tell 5,000 people to tell people to off. But as much as that is how I think we're all feeling, what are we actually going to tell people to say?
so I have three approaches that I like to talk about. So the first one is just ignore it. I mean, it's totally a valid option. Just ignore it. You don't need to respond to the email being like, "Thank you so much for your like spelling correction. I'll endeavor to be clearer." And I like, you don't have to do that. Absolutely not. The second one, which I have definitely used in corporate, and I know you've used this one in corporate too, Natalie, is you play the guilt card. Thank you so much for pointing this out. I struggle with severe dyslexia, and so spelling mistakes do get through. I really appreciate your understanding as this is a struggle for me. Have you played the I don't want to say the disability card, but have you played the like sympathy card before?
I definitely have played the kill with kindness kind of concept, like trying to make them feel bad for sure. I think I'm usually too annoyed to reply, so I probably have eared on the side of like just not replying because I do get really, really annoyed by things like this, particularly when it's like you spelled there or there wrong. And like my big one is I used to be an account manager and I would email people telling them that I was their account manager. And is it really the end of the world if I told you you're an account manager? No.
Yeah. You actually kind of like teed up my like third way of dealing with this, which is the kill them with kindness approach. So we're in a unique position that we can respond this way because we are a company for dyslexics by dyslexics. So if anyone comes to us with a spelling mistake, like call out, I just assume that they're really self-conscious about their spelling. And so they just
Yeah.
wanted to point it out to us. So in the email we sent back, because as a company, like we're not going to let this stand of like somebody grammar policing us. I just responded back really kindly with like, oh, if you're having this issue, like here are some tools that we recommend. Like, and I was like Grammarly, voice to text, text to audio. So I went through like a whole list and then just to be like extra nice, I was like, oh, and if you, you know, need additional like help or resources with dyslexia, here's access to our October campaign. Like I just killed them with kindness. And I actually stole this strategy from Kristen Bell. Do you know who that is?
Mm.
Yeah, so I heard this story online and it was her husband explaining this what she does, where like if people are like ticked off, she just goes out of her way to be as absolutely kind as possible to them because it's like that literal kill them with kindness. I don't remember the exact story, but I was just very inspired by her and I was like, this is how we're going to deal with this.
And Katie, this is why you deal with the email inbox of people and I don't, because I either wouldn't have had the time to reply so nicely or would have gladly told them where to shove it. Like, would have with pleasure been like, I think this is a you issue, and here's where the unsubscribe button is. Um, and so that's probably like my approach to things. But I do think one of the things I often talk to people about and kind of say, like, I think this is actually the truth of the matter is like, and I know this has helped me, is trying to reframe it a little bit and try and remember that this is a statement on them. Like, if they're gonna speak to you like this, like, they should be embarrassed. No one really cares that much. It doesn't matter. If they understand you, it really doesn't matter. And we need to just kind of like shed this concept that like being good at your job is like noticing things like that because it's not.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. I also always try and have the most generous interpretation possible. And so I just sit here and I'm like, individuals who have the space and time to respond back to an email, either number one, really value this highly. And that's cool. I'm glad it's important to them. Like, if they're the spelling bee champ, that's awesome. Like, high five. But it's not something that I value. So, why would I waste my energy worrying about it? So, that's number one. Number two is if they want to waste their time in that way, let them. Like it's no skin off your back. It, the only time that I would ever be worried about spelling or grammar or any of that in an email is like you said at the top, like as long as you get the point across and you know, like people can read your message. There have definitely been times when I have sent an email to a client or an outward facing, partnership person, and they're like, I'm so sorry. I don't understand what you said. Can you explain this again? And in that case, like I genuinely will be like, yeah, here, let me break that down. I'm so sorry about the miscommunication. My fingers typed faster than my brain or whatever it is. And I think that's the approach that you have to have is just ignore the haters and I'm sure there's a rapper out there who could come up with like a great lyric here, but like ignore the haters and just like embrace the people who are chill with it.
I completely agree. And also, remember the stuff that's important and the stuff that isn't. If it's really that important that it is a problem if you've made a spelling mistake, the chances are you could probably get someone else to check it. Everything else is just not that important. And so if the mistake snuck through, then the mistake snuck through. Like it's just like let them be annoyed. But I need you to know when you're listening to this episode that like I will be annoyed for longer than that person will have been annoyed because I will get so frustrated by it. And the irony of like while we're talking about this is I'm realizing that you're the worst speller between the two of us and you're not that bothered. I'm really not that bad at spelling and I'm the one who's bothered.
Yeah, no, my spelling is abysmal. Oh my gosh, I know we need to wrap up this episode, but I have a story. So I have a friend from college, which was 10-ish years ago. And I sent them a text message recently and I was like, hey, just checking in. They had had like a major life event happen, making sure you're okay. How's your mom? How's your dad? That kind of thing. And we like chatted for a minute and then they like responded back to me and bless their hearts. It was the sweetest thing. And I think it was a compliment, and that's how I'm choosing to take it. They were like, oh my gosh, your dyslexia has gotten so much better. Like your spelling is like really not bad at all. I took a minute and I took a deep breath and I just responded with like, thank you so very much. When like inside I'm screaming and I'm like, first off, shove it. Second off, it's because of spell check on Apple has gotten so much better in the past 10 years. I'm not better. Apple's better.
I
So
have to
shout out
say,
Apple.
yeah, I have to say my spelling has not got better, but my use of dictation has made my spelling look like it's got better.
Yeah. It's just wild the things that people think are like, your dyslexia is so much better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like better is in my strengths are clearer. Thanks so much for letting me know. What do you want me to say?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think that's the same way, like circling back to email, that's the same way I feel about email. What do you want me to say? When you send me a mistake, what is the goal? If it's like a presentation going out into the world, 100% please correct that. But an internal memo between if I misspell something in Slack, I don't care.
And the
I don't
thing
know
that
about it.
annoys me about these people, because I experience these people occasionally, is when they asterisk the right version. It's like, cool, so you understood me. So what's the problem here?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, we need to wrap up because we can sit here and complain all day long. But I think what's the moral of the story? So, like, high notes, email comes in that's like you misspelled X. What do we do, Natalie? What's our three options that we recommend?
Okay, well, we don't tell them to f off, although we want to. And then we kill them with kindness or just remind them that like we're dyslexic, these things happen, and the reality is if you understand me, then it's really not the end of the world. And for the important stuff that really does matter, because we know there's stuff that does matter, there is always going to be space for stuff to get checked if it's really that important.
Yeah. Or lastly, do my favorite, which is just ignore them.
Works for me.
Yeah. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of email month. We got some cool stuff coming in the podcast. So stay tuned next week when I don't remember what we're going to talk about. Memory month was last month and nothing's changed. I can't remember, but uh, this week's going to be fun.
Thank you for listening to the Dyslexia and Adults podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please do rate and review it, as it makes a huge difference to reach more people like you. Just remember that dyslexia does not define you, and with the right strategies, you can unlock your potential. See you next week.